Okay, so the Devils make a big move on the first day of free agency, July 1st, 2026. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Michael. This is a big one. Not in terms of the player that they're acquiring or even the salary that they're giving up, but just the fact that this is a move that isn't really done that often. The New Jersey Devils have offer sheeted center Barrett Hayton from the Utah Mammoth. They signed him, or they offered a tender qualifying offer, whatever, a 1 year deal, $4,775,000 deal. And the offer sheet compensation that would go to Utah would be a second round pick in the 2027 NHL entry draft. Um, for those who don't know what an offer sheet is, essentially every player, has an RFA year. Usually after their first entry contract, they become a restricted free agent. Some players are restricted free agents after their second contract, maybe even after the third, depending on how many years they sign for. Barrett Hayton is a situation where he was a restricted free agent this year at the age of 26. And when a player is a restricted free agent, they obviously have their rights owned by the team that they were on, after their contract expires. Um, and 99 out of 100 times, maybe even more, 999 out of 1,000 times, maybe even more than that, a player who's a restricted free agent will that gets a qualifying offer. They have to get a qualifying offer before June 30th, which means that they essentially their rights are held by the team that they are on. If they don't receive a qualifying offer, they will become an unrestricted free agent on July 1st. It happens all the time where players don't get qualifying offers. Um, but if you're a restricted free agent after July 1st or after June 30th going into July 1st, you can sign a offer sheet, which means another team can offer you a contract and you can sign the contract, and the team that the player's on has to match the deal within 7 days, or that player becomes a player on the team that offer sheeted them. Um, on top of that, the team who lost the player in the offer sheet gets draft pick compensation, and there are different levels depending on what the salary is. Um, this salary is $4,775,000, which is the maximum amount that the Devils could give to Barrett Hayton. That would not be more than a second round pick. This is the max they can give. If they gave up more, they would have to give up a first round pick or something like that. They are offering up a second round pick to Barrett Hayton. Now, this situation is very interesting, and we'll talk about the restricted free agent history, is because restricted free agency is not something that is utilized that often. For many years, it was not used through the 2010s and, the 2000s. It was used, I think, once. There's a famous story of one of, Brendan Burke's players being offered a what's it called? An offer sheet, and it was a player on his Anaheim team, and the Edmonton Oilers offer sheeted it, and Brendan Burke did not like that. He was not happy about it. There's this weird kind of belief within the league. It's definitely not as much as it was, but that offering up um, an offer sheet is taboo. It's frowned upon by the league. It's viewed as a kind of a jerk move, and if you do it, you're a bad person, kind of idea. And that's why it wasn't used for years. The first uh, situation of an offer sheet was years ago when, at least within the new era, and the second era of offer sheet was when the Montreal Canadiens offer sheeted Sebastian Aho from the Carolina Hurricanes, and there was an internet feud there. And eventually, Carolina ended up um, matching the offer. Obviously, it's Sebastian Aho, but then a few years later, the Carolina Hurricanes offer sheeted Jesperi Kotkaniemi from the Montreal Canadiens, and Montreal did not match the deal, and they got I don't know what the compensation was, but they ended up getting Kotkaniemi. Montreal got compensation. And then a few years later, we had another one. Just a couple of years ago, the St. Louis Blues offer sheet Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg, two offer sheets from the Edmonton Oilers. And Edmonton could not afford it, so they let him walk. Not walk, they let him sign with St. Louis, and they got compensation. So it is rare. it's definitely more, it's definitely happening more now than it was 10 years ago because 10 years ago, it wasn't happening for years. I think like 15 years in between offer sheets, but it's happened three times in the last like 5 years. So it's definitely not really frowned upon too much now. Um, and the Devils aren't afraid to do it. Now, there is a story about this, and I don't know how true it is because it just came out, but apparently, at the 2026 NHL entry draft, the Devils and Utah had a trade in place to send Barrett Hayton to the New Jersey Devils for a pick, a prospect. I'm not sure what it was. We don't know what the compensation was. And at the last minute, Utah backed out. They said, nah, we're not interested. Let's back out. And that upsetted the Devils and Sonny Meta. So they made this move because they feel like, one, Barrett Hayton can be an addition to the team. And two, because we're not going to let a team like Utah tell us what we can and cannot do. If they had a trade on the table for us and we're expecting to acquire Barrett Hayton, then we want Barrett Hayton, and they back out last minute. So it's kind of a power move. Um, and I respect it from Sonny Meta. I'm the kind of guy who, from a GM, should not be pushed around. You shouldn't accept things that you don't like. If something happens where you have a deal in place and someone backs it out, you say, "All right, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna do something about it." Maybe I acquire someone else. I'm not just gonna be like, we came in second. That's too much of a Tom Fitzgerald problem. Is just being like, we came in second. We can't do anything about it. We just don't get what we want. No, he wants Barrett Hayton, and he went out and offered it to Barrett Hayton. Now let's talk about Barrett Hayton, the player, first, and then we'll go into what this means for the team. Barrett Hayton is a former fifth overall pick of the Arizona Coyotes in the 2018 NHL entry draft, and he unfortunately never hit his stride. A fifth overall pick is expected to be an elite first line center, to be honest with you, and he never became that. But he has shown flashes of being a very good middle six center. And at the age of 26, I think he slotted really well as a perfect third liner. Um, if you look at his career, I like to go back 4 years. The 22-23 season, all 82 games played, 43 points. Not last season, 3 years ago, 33 games played, missed a lot of time due to injury, only 10 points. 24-25 season, 2 seasons ago, 82 games played, 46 points. Last season, only 67 games played, 25 points. So there is a trend offensively with him where he has a good year and then he has a down year slash injured year, then a good year, then a down slash injured year. But the problem with him, which is not a problem, it's actually a positive about him, is that he is a very good face-off man and he's a very good defensive player. If you look at his face-offs, last year, 52.6%. 2 years ago, 54.1%. What Barrett Hayton is he is a good face-off man. He plays the game very, very respectfully, very, very responsibly. Respectfully is not the right word. Very, very responsibly, and he's a good defenseman from a forward standpoint. Um, and that's what he would come to New Jersey to be, is to be a third line center who has offense because in the 24-25 season, 46 points, 20 goals. 22-23 season, 43 points, 19 goals. Like we're looking at a 15 to 20 goal scorer, 40-45 point guy on your fourth line who can win faceoffs and who's very good defensively. That's a perfect third liner. And that's what he should be, and that's what he would be for the Devils. Now, to shift into what this means for the Devils is this would mean that you have fantastic center depth. You would have Jack Hughes as your first line center. You would have Nico Hischier as your second line center. You would have Barrett Hayton as your third line center, and you would have Cody Glass or Nick Bjugstad as your fourth line center. And I think that that's incredible center depth for the New Jersey Devils this upcoming season. Not only do you have Nico Hischier, who's one of the best defensive centers in the league, now you're acquiring a true two-way center in Barrett Hayton who can take the load off of Nico Hischier from a defensive forward standpoint. Nico Hischier's out there on the ice against other teams' top lines. Now you don't necessarily need to have Nico Hischier play a true defensive role while also expected to be an elite offensive player. This would be a great addition for them, in my opinion. What this means for the rest of the roster is there's too many forwards. That means that You recently acquired Evan Rodriguez, would move over to wing, which I think Evan Rodriguez would be a better wing anyway, instead of a center because Evan Rodriguez over the last 2 seasons only 46.5% in the faceoff dot. I want a center who can be really good at faceoffs, especially in a 3C position. Cody Glass is also very good at faceoffs. He would be the 4C. Um, but this would be their lines. So you would have Brat and Jack Hughes as your first line. I'll get into the wingers, but your second line would be Timo Meyer, Nico Hischier, and RC Negritsiak, who you just re-signed. Your third line would be Evan Rodriguez, Barrett Hayton, and Connor Brown. And then your fourth line would be Cody Glass, Jesper Boqvist, and Stefan Nason. The reason why I have question marks about that first line winger and I didn't write a name down is because these are the other names that are there that aren't on this list, aren't on this depth chart. Dawson Mercer, where does Dawson Mercer fit into this? Because in my eyes, Dawson Mercer is not a top six guy, at least not yet. 24-year-old forward, can play center, can play winger. I think Dawson Mercer would be a perfect third liner, but you have Connor Brown and you have Evan Rodriguez, who you just acquired. You're not moving Brown or Rodriguez down to the fourth line. And if you do, that means that Boqvist, who you just acquired, or Nason, who is expected to come back healthy, would be out of the lineup. You also have Nick Bjugstad, who the Devils acquired at the deadline in the last regime. He didn't play all that well for them. He was okay. He makes between 1.5 and $2 million. Does that mean that Bjugstad is on the way out in a trade? And also, what does that mean for Lenny Hamanaho, who played 30 plus games for the Devils this year? At times looked really good, at times struggled a bit, but I think that's just because he's a young player. I don't think Lenny Hamanaho's ready for a top six spot. Does he go back to Utica? Is he a part of a trade piece? I've been seeing online some Devils fans say that this Barrett Hayton deal is not a good deal because this does not mean that they can get a top six winger, which they desperately need, and they do. If that is the case, which I don't think it is, and Barrett Hayton is the only move that they make, the only real move other than acquiring Evan Rodriguez and Jesper Boqvist in the Markstrom deal, then that forward core is still weak to me. I think they're one winger away now from being very good, but I don't think that's the case. I do think that this is a depth addition and a great third line center addition, but I still think that Sonny Meta is going to acquire a top six winger. I think that Mercer would be a person in play as a part of that. Bukestad, I think, would probably be shipped off. Haminaho, I actually don't have a problem with Haminaho being in the minors next year and getting another year of development. Um, the only problem with this is that the only real problem I see with this is Barrett Hayton would be making 4.775. That leaves the Devils with not that much money to acquire a top six guy. Now, like I said, you would be trading away Mercer in this deal to get a top six guy. That would be $4 million off the books. There's other areas where you could save money too. You have the left side, which is very stacked on the defensive side. Jonas Siegenthaler, Luke Hughes, Brendan Dillon. You acquired Declan Chisholm and you acquired Vladislav Kolyachonok. Kolyachonok. I can't pronounce that name yet. And Anton Salayev, who was your first round pick 2 years ago on the left side. Do you trade Brendan Dillon? Do you trade Jonas Siegenthaler? Let's just say you trade away Brendan Dillon and you trade away Mercer. That frees up $8 million on top of like $4 million that you would have left after Hayton. That means 12 mil. You can get a Dylan Larkin. You can get an Alex DeBrincat. Again, those are just names. I'm not saying that those are guys they could go after, but I'm saying something of that caliber of an $8 to $9 million first line winger and still have $3 to $4 million left over. Who knows? Maybe you can even go out and get a $10 million winger or an $11 million winger. The only problem I see with this is what does this mean for goaltending? Are the Devils going to go into next season with Jake Allen or Nico Dawes? I hope they don't. I think that I talked in my old video, and I will do a video on the goaltending. I I I I think that that could be a good tandem. I'm nervous about the tandem. I'll get into it in another video, but does that mean that your goaltending is only Allen and Dawes? Does that mean that you can acquire a goalie? Because if you acquire Barrett Hayton, and then I assume you would go out and get a top six winger via trade or even free agency. You sign Tarasenko or something like that to like a $4 or $5 million deal, you know, that puts them out of the rankings for getting like Connor Hellebuck, in my opinion. So this is a very interesting offer sheet. This would be a good addition for the team. I think this would make the team better, and that would change the bottom six completely. Within a year, they would be adding Rodriguez, Hayden, and Boqvist, and a healthy Stefan Nason, who was injured last year. Um, I think that's a great bottom six, in my opinion. The real problem is the top six. Another thing to note is Utah could match. I think that they have the ability to match this. Now, the only problem with them is if they match the deal, they can't trade Barrett Hayton for a full year. They can't trade him at all. He's stuck on the team. He's just stuck as their 3C. Doesn't matter if they want to move him or improve the team, he's stuck. He is on the team. They cannot do anything with him until he becomes an unrestricted free agent, July 1st, 2027. In terms of money, I think Utah can do it. In terms of basically him having a no move clause, makes me wonder if they will. I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I think that there's a 50-50 chance that Utah matches or they just let him come to the Devils. Either way, I like this. I like this addition from Sonny Mena because it makes the team better. It adds to a need where it comes to depth centerman. I think that Cody Glass is good, but I don't think he's good enough to be a true 3C. I think Barry Heron's a great 3C. I like this move. I would like to see them get him. I would like to see Utah not match it. And then I would like to see them get a top six winger. And then I would like to see him get a goalie, but I'll talk about that in another video. This is going to be a very interesting situation. We have 7 more days to wait, but hope free agency's been going good for all the fans at home. I hope you get the players that you like. That's all I got for this one. Like, comment, subscribe, share with a friend. Maybe they'll share with another friend. Favorite, if that's still a thing. I'm not 100% sure. I'm still trying to figure that one out. If favoriting still a thing. But for me, thanks for watching.